Welcome back, this is Professor Xiaoma. In this video, I will demonstrate and explain a specific hands-on problem. Now keep in mind that in demonstrating the hands-on problem, I will use an example dataset, which is default one. When you do the homework, the dataset is different, so make sure that you adapt the code to work with the homework. In the video, I assume that whatever Python package that we will be using, you have already installed them. If you realize that you haven't installed a specific package and you need to install it in the middle of the video, simply pause the video and go ahead and install it. Install the Python package by following the tutorials that I uploaded. Now let's get started. For this demo, I'm still using the default one dataset as is used in many of the other homework videos. It's important to understand what a categorical variable is. It does not necessarily have to, it doesn't have to have a category data type in Python, but a categorical variable has only a limited number of discrete labels. It can be in numeric numbers, but even with numbers, they typically refer to a small number of discrete categories or levels that cannot be numerically calculated. I'm using the column marital stat for the demonstration here. The column marital stat records the status of the marriage of the customer, and there are only a few discrete labels here. The first question you want to ask yourself is, how many discrete labels are there? And how many flag variables will you need to create in order to model this categorical variable? So here, I will verify what I know about this variable by using Python. To get the discrete labels, there are several ways. You can print out the number of discrete labels by counting the number of unique values in the column. And that's one way. It will return as output an integer number to represent the number of discrete labels. You can also get the unique labels by using .unique of pandas series to get a list of all the labels there, and obviously the number of elements here will correspond to the number that you got above, and then I print out the necessary information. So let's run this. Now, there are 3 discrete labels in the marital stat variable. So the k is equal to 3, representing the number of discrete labels. And to convert this categorical variable into flag variables, I need k minus 1 equal 2 flag variables. I won't need as many flag variables as they are discrete labels because one of them will need to be discarded in order to avoid multicollinearity. Once you know what to expect, now you can start with the steps. First, we'll use the get dummies of the pandas package, like this. You use the get dummies, you feed in the columns that you need to create dummy variables or flag variables. Here, I only need 1 column. And to properly differentiate and recognize the created columns of the flag variables, I use a prefix, which is meaningful. It stands for flag variables, and it's flag variables for the marital. And the column labels will also contain the exact label that the flag variable corresponds. And also I decide to drop whatever is the first label. Now the output is a data frame, which includes the flag variables. It's always a good idea to sanity check the created output. So I'm going to print a few rows of the flag variables to check. So I printed 3 rows. There are only 2 columns here as expected, and they are in the proper forms of the flag variable. So now I need to convert, or I need to put these 2 flag variable columns into the main data set. Now this is a little tricky because the 2 columns do not have the same column to identify the rows. I need to create an ID-like column for the flag variable data frame in order to properly merge the 2 data frames. So I first need to create the ID-like column. What I will do is this. Now, because the rows of the flag variables correspond to the rows of the original data set, I can copy the exact ID column from the main dataset into a new column of the flag variables data frame. And because the rows correspond to the same observation, this way the data will not introduce any integrity issues. So after doing this, my flag variables data frame will have an additional column, which is the ID. After that, I can properly merge the two data frames. To merge the two data frames, I use pandas merge method. If you are familiar with this function, you know how to do. You need two data frames here, left and right. You need to specify the margin, which is similar to the database join type. Which type of join is that? I'm doing inner. Here, it doesn't matter whether or not you use inner or outer because it's one-to-one merge. It's one-to-one join. And the primary key here is to use the ID as the unique identifier. And last but not least, let's do some sanity check. I will first print a few rows of the original categorical variable, marital stat. So the first three records has IDs like that, and their marital status is single, married, and married. So I would expect that for the same three customers, the column of flag marital single would be 1, and the other column would be 0. And for the two married cases, both of the flag variables will be 0 because I don't have a married column per se. That column is being dropped. So let's check. Here are the codes to print the ID column as well as the two flag variables. I'll talk about the codes in a little bit. So as expected, the three customers match on their ID. And for the first customer, the single column is 1, indicating that this customer marital status is single, is not others, and of course is not married as well. For the second and third customer, both of the flag variables are 0 because neither of them is either others or single. They are married. By having 0 values for both of the flag variables, two flag variables are effectively modeling these two customers to be married. Now a little bit about the code. Here I'm doing something more advanced. This is called list comprehension. But first I'm adding two lists here. I'm adding two lists to become one list. And the plus operation here for lists, it simply glues the two lists together. So it put the elements all in one bigger list. The first list has only one element, ID label. The second element will return a list of two items. And the two items, their labels contain the text's flag. So for list comprehension, if you are interested, you can use the Python programming book that I recommended to study how to do that if you are not familiar, or you can do a quick and effective Google search for list comprehension, and I'm sure you can find very good materials online. So here I'm selecting from the entire list of the column labels of this data frame, default 1, but only retain the label if the condition satisfies this condition, if flag text is in the label. So by doing this, I'm effectively selecting the two and only two flag variable column labels that contain flag. The end result is that I am selecting only three columns, the three columns that I wanted, and only print the first three rows of the subset. You have successfully transformed a categorical variable into a group of flag variables and verified that the transformation is successful. Now here is a special case. What if you have a binary variable that are recorded in text format? Obviously, a binary variable only has two discrete labels, and you only need one flag variable to model that text binary variable. In that case, you have a shortcut. For the special case of a binary variable in text format, I'm going to use the column gender to demonstrate here. And first of all, let me double check and verify that there are only 2 labels in this variable. So I'm using the unique method of the series to call the entire list of unique labels for this variable. And it's confirmed I only have 2 labels here, male and female. And I'm going to create a flag variable that is named female to model the value, to model whether or not a customer is female. You only need 1 line of code to do that, to create that flag variable and finish the process, is by using a comparison clause. I'm going to compare the column gender with a string female, and the result will be 1 if the actual value of gender is female. Otherwise, it's going to be 0. I will use this code to create the new flag variable by using a comparison code here. And then because the comparison result will be Boolean type, true or false, I need to convert that into, and true values will be converted to a value of 1, and false values will be converted to a value of 0. So by doing this and assigning the values to the new flag variable, I'm effectively creating the flag variable in 1 line. Alright, you have successfully learned how to create flag variables for categorical variable, and as a special case to create flag variable for a binary variable stored as text. I hope you have enjoyed this video. See you next time.